welcome to SYSTRAcast, the SYSTRA podcast for the UK and Ireland. I'm Holly Wallace, I'm going to be your host today, and we are going to be looking at Water Safety Week, and particularly safety on the water in terms of hobbies and activities. It's the summer holidays, people will be going off on adventures and looking for activities to do, so we thought we'd record a special SYSTRAcast looking at some activities that are not only great for your mental health, but that are fun and free. So, joining me today, we have members of the SYSTRA family who are going to tell us about the joys of paddleboarding and swimming, or wild swimming as it's now known. So I'm going to do a little bit of around the table. First up, from our consultancy business, we have Chris Pownell. Chris is the Business Development Director for Consultancy. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Holly. Great to be here.
Lovely to see you. We've got Carrie Stevenson. Carrie is our Director of Behaviour, Change and Research, working for Consultancy. Hello, Carrie.
Hello.
And then from engineering, we have Amy Scott, who's an ecologist in the Environmental Services team. Hi, Amy.
Hello, everybody.
And finally, we have Dave Staton, who's our Commercial Director. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Holly. Hi, everybody.
Hello. So, as I mentioned, I'm Holly. I'm an Assistant BD Manager in the engineering team, and I'll be diving straight in today, pardon the pun, and asking our lovely bunch, why? Why do you do it? Why do you do the wild swimming, the paddleboarding? Chris?
Why do I do it? Well, I guess I've kind of got addicted to it. I started swimming in lakes when I was, a long time ago now actually, when I was living in Germany, where it was quite common there. And when I came back to Britain, I just found you just don't do it. But it's suddenly become a lot more popular in the last few years, and particularly after the pandemic. And it was something I tried just as I was coming out of the pandemic and was looking for something to do, because of course it's outdoors, it worked with social distancing and everything. So I started again in summer 21, and I haven't stopped since. And that includes swimming all the way through the winter as well. So yeah.
So it's actually you've not been doing it for since you were a child. It is actually quite in the last sort of few years you've gotten into it.
Yeah, actually, I didn't actually learn to swim until I was 22, and I never really took to it when I was a kid. But as I say, the experience of living in Germany got me into the idea of swimming in lakes, because it's quite common there, and it's just
that's amazing.
Slightly different culture to it there, and there's a lot of people. It's become really fashionable in the last few years.
Well, I was really into recording this podcast because I grew up in the Lake District. So I grew up just bombing into, off the top of waterfalls, into rivers, not really thinking about safety. As you get older, you suddenly go, oh, maybe jumping into a freezing cold river isn't, the best thing to do, the shock to the system. But like you say, it's just something that's stuck with me, and it is addictive. It's totally addictive. How about you? How about the rest of you guys? Dave, you are a wild swimmer. What got you into it?
Well, it was I met somebody on a stag do who said one morning, does anybody fancy going for a swim this morning instead of the obligatory bacon sandwich? And I thought, why not? So as a chap I didn't know, and then when we returned home, he sort of reached out and invited me. Well,
I imagine it's very refreshing after a stag do to wake you up, clear the cobwebs.
Do you know what? It is indeed, and it was something different to do, and so we did it every morning on the stag do. So, and then continued with the friendship and the group of individuals I met as a result of that, and it was fantastic. And wild swimming can be anywhere as well. Most of the locations are pretty beautiful. So it can be a lake, it can be a river, it can be the sea. So there's a lot. For me, there's a lot more to it than just the swimming. It's about seeing different places, being in and around nature and beautiful locations, and just enjoying what's around you, rather than sort of dashing from one thing to to another, living in the moment a bit more. So
I know when I've been swimming before, I've seen a kingfisher, just fly across the river, and you're so connected on that level. It's absolutely amazing. And so that kind of leads me really on to Carrie, because Carrie, it's quite a new thing for you. Am I right in thinking?
Yes, well, I bought 2 paddleboards 2 years ago after having been on friends' paddleboards and really enjoyed it. I still consider myself a beginner, and when it's a bit wavy in the sea, I'm still on my knees, not standing up. But yeah, I love being able to explore sort of bits of coasts and coves from the sea, looking onto the shore rather than the other way around. I love the feeling of being on the water. And on rivers, I like doing journeys which are from A to B, usually from a pub to a pub. Nearby me, there's the River Wey, and there's pubs at various distances along it. Of course, with safety, I'm drinking orange juice when I get there. But yeah, even being known to deflate my paddleboard and get a taxi back to where I started.
Sounds
so
idyllic.
yeah.
And have you got any tips for beginners? Oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to hop in and say that one of the wonderful things about paddleboarding is when you're swimming, you've got a head width above the water, so you have a vista that's great but reasonably limited. When you're on a paddleboard, because you're stood on the paddleboard, the vista that you can see is far, far, far greater.
Like the top deck of a bus.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, like the top deck. I've never thought of it like that, but you're absolutely right. And I just find that wonderful. You can swim in paddleboard in exactly the same location and take completely different things away.
I saw someone paddleboarding yesterday on their stomach doing front crawl style, going along the water with a mask on as well.
Oh, wow.
So doing a bit of both. And certainly, I've paddleboarded lying down, standing up, kneeling, definitely different views, but being very much on a river amongst the wildlife and on the sea, just a bit more sort of challenging, keeping yourself upright, especially if it's a bit wavy.
Have you tried paddleboard yoga yet, Carrie?
I haven't.
Which is a thing.
Yeah, I've done. Had a bit of a laugh with some friends trying. No, not really.
I'm guessing you guys are you all seasons? Are you fair weather swimmers and paddleboarders, or is it all year round that you tend to go?
Absolutely.
Obviously, if you are swimming in the depths of winter, how do you warm up afterwards? Have you got your little cup of tea and a bobble hat, or I know there's these really cool dry robes that you can get these days.
There's so much to it, actually. One thing is to actually have quite a good organised routine. So have your flask of hot coffee, in my case. Yeah, I've got one of those dry robes from another manufacturer. Other manufacturers are available in dry robe. I've got my clothes all laid out in the car, ready to put on really quickly. And actually, we were talking about wetsuits and things. I mean, wetsuits are great to an extent, but actually, one of the big downsides of them is they
really hard to get off.
Take off. Yeah, where I go, you sort of see people standing around struggling and falling over as they try to take their wetsuit off while they're shivering. And actually, just be able to quickly get into something and warm up is really, really important.
Hot water bottles.
I mean, I think one thing people don't realise about when you swim in cold water, and presumably you both find this, we actually get coldest after you've got out. But yeah, there's a thing called afterdrop where actually your body is very good when it's in the water because it does exactly the right thing. It takes all the blood flow away from your extremities and looks after all your organs inside and keeps them nice and warm. That's all very good. But when you get out, about 10, 15 minutes after you got out, it sort of relaxes and goes, back to normal now. And it starts mixing up all the warm and the cold blood, and that's what makes you suddenly feel like you're really, really cold for no apparent reason. And it can be a bit scary, can't it? Don't know it's coming. It comes as a bit of a shock.
Am I right in thinking, so you do a lot of paddleboarding in the sea as well, and I'm guessing, compared with rivers and lakes, there are different safety considerations there. You see things about riptides. If people do get into trouble, I know there's quite a famous poem that says not waving but drowning. Because you often can't tell. What's your experience of that in terms of sort of sea safety?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, wearing the right kit is really important. I know swimming with wetsuits is probably not a good idea, but when you are swimming in the sea, I always wear a wetsuit. I wear a winter wetsuit with boots, sometimes with gloves. And that's purely because if you go in the water, you're going to be protected from cold water shock. Not always, it can still happen. So it's obviously mindful to sort of get used to that cold water. Go in when you can. Obviously, don't suddenly decide you want to go paddleboard freezing cold weather, you know, and you've never done it before. It's probably not a good idea, but if you are used to it and you can work your way up to it, definitely with a wetsuit. The only thing with a paddleboard is you are exposed, so you're going to get cold if it's windy. I don't tend to wear my wetsuit for long when I'm wet, because you do get very cold very quickly. As Dave was saying, you've got to plan ahead. If I am going anywhere else, I tend to wear sort of dry clothes, so you're warm underneath and you're not going to be exposed to that cold. But obviously you've got to think about, if you do get wet, where's all your stuff, how are you going to get dry and warm? But working on the sea, it is different. You've got to think about so many different factors. You've got the tide, you've got the wind, you have got rips. Fortunately, I've never ever seen anyone drowning. I hope I never will. I've never seen anyone get into trouble. I take clients out, I make sure everyone's wearing a buoyancy aid, but people do go out without one, and it's definitely to their own risk. They do say someone in trouble, they will be vertical. They'll be quite quiet. They won't be shouting and waving and screaming, because they will be panicked. They'll be struggling to breathe. They'll be bobbing up and down, taking breaths, but you might not see that. You might not see their arms. So it's just making sure that you're aware of, you know, who you're out with. Are you out with children? Are you out with adults? What's their normal? If they go quiet and they're not, you know, having fun and, you know, jumping around and splashing, is that abnormal? It's just making sure you're watching rather than listening. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, because you might not hear them struggling because they can't shout for help, because they are literally struggling to breathe. So you can't release a big sort of loud noise when you can't gasp for air. So that's probably my biggest tip, would be just to keep eyes on people. Even competent swimmers and paddleboarders can get into trouble. Things can go wrong. You can fall off funny. You know, you can have a bad day. It's just best just to mind out for people who you're with and tell people where you're going, for sure.
You said that when you take people out, so here a little bit of shameless self-promotion here, but you actually have a website, don't you?
I do have a website, yeah. So I started my own sort of training sort of during lockdown, and I got really, really into it. Basically, I've never looked back, and I've completed my paddleboard and instructing course back in October. So I'm qualified to take people out. It's mostly for beginners and improvers, so people who've never done the task before, and people who've done it, you know, a couple of times but want to get a little bit better or try new places. So I tend to take people out on rivers and coastal areas, but sheltered and, you know, with breakwaters, so they're not going to be sort of swept out to sea. But I do have to be mindful of conditions and weather before I take people out. So I tend to choose the location based on the weather. The wind being the biggest factor. Paddleboarding in the wind is not fun for anyone. Doesn't matter how experienced you are, it's going to be hard and you will be on your knees. So yeah, I love it. It's great and people have a great time. So, and that's why I want to do it, and why I want to carry on doing it, is to, you know, help people have a good time and help people feel confident in the water, so they know if they go out on their own, they're not going to get into trouble, or if they do, they know what to do.
I think that kind of brings me towards my final question. Gosh, time flies when you're having fun. But it's those benefits, isn't it? It's the, you know, wanting to share it with people, and I suppose what benefits does it bring you guys? You know, mentally, physically, and then socially. What would you say have been the biggest benefits for you since taking it up? Dave, how about you?
I think when you're in the water and you're swimming, your mind is absolutely, you know, clear of pretty much everything else apart from swimming, the water, your surroundings, and that carries forward when you've got out of the water as well. And it's such a cleansing sport or activity to do, and just to, I guess, decompress at the end of the day and reset your mind and your brain. just wonderful, fantastic.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with it being a very mindful activity, being on a paddleboard as well. You don't think anything other than what's around you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I always notice that during, whether I'm going out with friends or with clients, there's always a moment of quiet where everyone is experiencing the same thing. And I think it may be the flow state where everyone's just focusing on the activity, but there's also a sense of sort of connection to your body and mind. And everyone just goes a little bit quiet and a little bit subdued, but they're really enjoying themselves, but they're just soaking it in. And that's what I really like about it. No matter who I've been out with, beginners or more experienced paddlers, everyone feels like that. And everyone comes away thinking like, wow, I really, really like that. Not just because of it's an activity and, you want to get fit, but just the motion of the water, feeling like you're floating on the water, well, you are essentially, but because of that, again, that sort of perspective, you've got that 360 view. It really is amazing. And, I think everyone should access that at least once in their lives. It's amazing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think also paddleboarding, the sounds of the water. I like paddleboarding either on my own or with one other person. So it's just a very quiet activity rather than a social activity. And just listening to the paddle sort of going through the water.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to add that I've found that open water swimming is quite a inclusive activity. It seems to attract a really big range of people from all ages, people with disabilities, people from all different backgrounds, and you get people who are there just for a very gentle little breaststroke and go in a little group together and have a chat as you go around, to the people who are training for triathlon and they're looking really serious in their wetsuits and shooting up and down the course at a great rate of knots. Everybody goes, nobody gets in each other's way, there's always lots of space, and there's sort of like respect for what everybody else is doing. It's very much your own activity. You own it, you do it to the extent that you want to do it, whatever that is.
Thank you, guys. I think this has been an absolutely brilliant podcast. I hope it's useful for everyone who's listening to it. We'll be sure to post some links and some resources online afterwards. But for now, thank you ever so much. It's been great talking to you, and goodbye.